And I never thought I'd feel this way. But as far as I'm concerned, you don't know this?
This one I don't know.
Keep smiling, keep shining, knowing you can always count on me.
Is this Dionne Warwick?
And Friends. Yes, thank you.
Oh. Yeah. This is after her early good period, I think.
That was actually about HIV. I think that was about like losing her friends to AIDS.
Oh yeah, so this would be like decades later.
Really happy stuff. Yeah, 80s.
Very uplifting.
Yeah, I'm like, I do that. Hello, and thank you for joining us on the Carmudgeon Show, where we talk about really depressing stuff like friends dying.
I didn't almost die, but I did pull a Jason Cammisa maneuver while driving a few weeks ago back from Seattle.
Took a turn sideways in front of a cop? You backed into an old lady in a parking lot? What?
Yes, that's right. The ice cream story.
I did hit an old woman.
How did the ice cream make out?
Splattered everywhere. I really did. I wrote a column about her for Road and Track because she was unaware that the car was running.
Because it's electric.
Because it's electric, and I was moving very, very, very slowly, and she turned around because somebody honked, and I never saw her, she never saw me, and I was watching in the backup camera as I was backing up, and next thing I know, I saw something
over
fly.
her.
Thank God, no. So I saw something fly, and like I decided what happens. I was backing up. I had friends in the car, and they're talking to each other, and I'm like, I'm gonna back out into traffic. It's just gonna be bad. Let me just go straight, and I'll make a U-turn at the other end of the parking lot. And as I put the car in drive and my eyes moved from the backup camera there, I saw something like fall in the rearview mirror. And I'm like, the fuck is this? It turned out it was an old lady. And she was this far from my tire. I mean, she was genuinely, I was a foot from running her over. And had I not decided, like, I'm gonna stop, I would have run her over. But this is a subject for another episode about why you need loud pipes save lives. Because the accident rate, the pedestrian injury rate for hybrids and EVs is between 50 and 70% higher than it is for gasoline combustion cars. So I think all electric vehicles should have that.
Doesn't happen with my motorcycle.
Right? So you ran an old lady over.
I would have liked to. It was a left lane hog. Left lane hog. That is my least favorite. I hate American left. So this happened in Washington State, which is probably one of the most egregious places on earth for left lane hoggery.
I agree.
There was like a line of 10 cars behind this woman in a Jetta, a red Jetta. And so I'm spending probably 20 minutes picking them off one at a time, like to get to the front of the line. And I'm just enraged by the time I get to the front. And normally I'm not prone to rage. Oh, I should also say that I was driving my GT3, which has very loud exhaust.
Okay.
And so like I get in front of her and I'm like, I'm not gonna brake check her. That would be rude. That's what Jason Cammisa would do. I'm not gonna do that.
How very dare you.
I shifted down into fifth and like, I'm like, oh, we're going slow enough. I have to shift down into fourth and she's still behind me. She's like starting to get impatient. So then it's like, oh, I'm at the bottom of fourth. I have to shift down into third. And she's still behind me. And she's like getting upset and she's like looking around to go to the right. And like eventually she does go to the right. She gets out of the right lane. And I'm like, I have done considerable like community service to the universe. And then I just nail it in third and wind it out to red line in third. And I think also fourth. But
so hold on.
That part was.
You're calling this community service that you got the bitch out of the left lane?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would say that I served the community of 10 humans that were stuck in cars for 20 minutes behind her.
And was she pacing someone else so that no one else could get around?
She was going like 1 to 2 miles per hour faster than everybody else, so that's why it took 20 minutes to get to the front of the line, and I had to do some like sort of unpleasant sort of right lane overtake. I hate overtaking on the right.
Look, it's a terrible thing to do, but we have no choice. What I hate is being forced into having to be an asshole at the wheel, right? There are so many times I'm on the highway and I will say to my passengers, like, dude, seriously, do I need to be this asshole now? Like, this guy's making me be the jerk, and I hate that. But Americans, and I gotta say West Coasters in particular, and the further you go up the West Coast, the worse it gets.
The Pacific Northwest is terrible.
Terrible, and they're for some reason, like you can spot an Oregonian or a Washingtonian from 10 cars back because they're 3 miles an hour below the speed limit. They're oblivious, but they are the worst.
In a Subaru or a Prius.
Yeah, it really is. I have the very bad luck of having I think the worst combination of formative driving years. I lived in New York until I was 15, where everyone is quick and
decisive
and defensive as fuck, and they're just, everyone's in a rush in New York, and they have a very keen sense of self-awareness and space, and you don't need a bubble of 12,000 feet around you in every direction, and they just go and they get shit done. And New Yorkers can be maniacs, and taxi drivers can be scurry with all, you know, like hitting each other and shit, but New Yorkers and Bostonians get places. At 15, after having had my whole life in the car with my mom, who was continually needle buried in her 900 turbo, and like my dad was always getting tickets, we moved to Germany. And that's 15 to 18 was, I went through driver's ed with all my friends.
So luxurious.
The lane discipline was amazing. And so I have this.
If you have not driven in Germany, you have to drive.
Well, you have to drive
or in Europe, continental Europe, anywhere, really.
Yes, but you needed to do it 15 years ago, because in Germany, we moved there in December of 90. In the 90s, the lane discipline was unbelievable. The Eastern Bloc hadn't opened up yet, so everyone, and you know, people weren't as wealthy as they are now, and people didn't travel as much as they do now. So Germany's roads were fairly empty, and the people who were driving in Germany were Germans, and they were trained. But anyway, I have this expectation that, like Germans, everyone will follow every single rule except the speed limit, because that's how Germans drive. And then I have the New Yorker thing where I'm an aggro, angry asshole in a rush. And I expect everyone to be 100% paying attention to driving, not looking at the phone, not fucking with their cars. Their lights need to be on when the lights should be on. They should be on their game. They should be focused 100% on driving, primarily. And then they should be in the world's biggest rush. And it drives
Oh my God, that sounds
nuts,
so fantastic.
Right? Well, it's honestly the biggest curse of my life, is that the license plate on my Lotus is "I hate everyone," and it's a joke, and it was funny, but I fucking do hate everyone on the road until I go to places like not California.
Europe, I mean, is just spectacular. The left lane, the hygiene there is incredible. It's magnificent.
I don't like being forced into pulling a Jason Cammisa move, as you called it. But this just happened. So we went on a rally a couple weeks ago with a bunch of friends, and I don't know what it is lately about Audi drivers, but like I've decided that it used to be Toyota drivers. When I was a kid, it was like Buick drivers were the oldest.
Well, that's because they were all on their way to the funeral home and they were basically not
Hearses don't go quickly. They were in no rush to get to the funeral.
No, if I was an old person, I would drive really fast because, like, you don't have much time left on the earth.
Maximize
like, I would like to make the best of my time. I don't want to be stuck in the car when I could be living.
Living, exactly. Some of these people left the house at age 32 in search of a stick of butter and haven't made it home yet, and they're 100 now. Some other ones died 16 years ago and are still coasting to a stop. Anyway, so we're on this drive, and lately it's been like Toyota, Subaru, and Audi. Like Subaru and Audi drivers are really fucking irritating me lately.
Subaru.
So this was a Q5, and the guy was like, he wound up passing a bunch of us while we were on the side of the road, and flew by us, and we're on a twisty road, and he was in the corners going like 0.2 G. He was like generating almost no cornering forces, driving really slowly, and then as soon as the road turned straight, he would fly out, and he was doing like 80.
It's like a track
55,
day.
right?
With the guy with the powerful car but who can't drive.
Yep. But this went on for like 20 miles, and we were on the radio to each other, and like, do we pass him? Do we not? And finally, I had fucking had it. So it was a passing zone, and he nails it when he gets out of that last corner. I'm in the Lotus. I nail it. We were going outrageously fast, like 54.5 miles an hour in a 55 zone. Anyway, while we're going outrageously fast, by the time I got past him, that dude was moving, and so I sort of signal and cut in front of him, not too close, not to be that much of a jerk, but then put my four-way flashers on and just start slowing down. And then I'm on the radio. All right, guys, you pass, because there's enough room in the passing zone. This guy lost his shit. He was apoplectic. Of course, taking pictures of me. Like, what are you going to do with the picture? Like, I'm below the speed limit now, driving in the proper lane with flashers on, and we're both now being passed by a bunch of cars who you've been holding up for 25 miles. And I just kept thinking, yeah, I'd be pissed too if I was in that Audi. But guess who made me be the asshole? Like, you could have just let the 15 cars that were on your ass pass you 20 miles ago, and we could have avoided this whole situation.
He was breaking the law, technically.
Yes. No one knows this.
Is this California law only?
California law.
But other states, yes? Or just California?
I've never heard of this. So in California, you have to have if you have 5 cars behind you, on a 2-lane road, you are required by law to stop in a turnout and allow them to pass. This is the singular most stupid thing I've ever heard in my life. Because if you have 5 cars behind you on a back road and you haven't pulled over by the time there were 1 or 2 or 3, you're fucking oblivious. Or you would have pulled over. You have no idea that these people are behind you. You probably aren't even aware of your own existence. You're that shoved up your own fucking ass. Hold on. So, also, if you have 5 cars behind you, that means you're probably going slow. And if you're going slow, that means you're a weak driver. Because the only people who go slow on back roads are people who are scared of their own fucking shadow. And when I mean slow, I mean people who are doing, I don't know, 35 in a 55 zone, which if you've done Highway 1, happens all the fucking time.
Or they're in a motorhome.
Right. But leaving it up to the weakest drivers on the road to be the ones to actively pull over and allow other people to pass is inverted logic. You're expecting the worst drivers in the world, the most oblivious drivers on the road, to be conscious of what they're doing.
At least it exists.
You know what's better? Passing zones. Passing zones everywhere. You go to New York, you go to any other state in the Union, and go to anywhere in Europe, and the whole fucking world is your passing zone. But anywhere that you can safely see around a corner, just go. And we as Americans think of a pass as it's very interesting. I don't know if you've ever noticed this. We as Americans think of it as a pass as a self-contained sort of capsule of motion. You're behind someone, you're frustrated, you wait until there's a passing zone, and then if you do things properly, you check your mirror, you do a quick shoulder look to make sure you're not being passed, right? You signal, you mat it, you floor it, you go as fast as you fucking can for a split second, and then you cut over, preferably using your turn signal, back into your lane, and then you slow back down. Europeans don't do this. They don't have a self-contained thing. It's a fluid pass. They sort of, as you approach someone, they just sort of go around and go, there's no violent slow down, speed up, whatever. And not once in all of the tens of thousands of miles I've driven in Europe have I ever seen anyone who's being passed speed up.
Yes.
That is
if they're sensible, they'll pull over to the right and slow down.
90% of them will pull over to the right side of their lane so that actually, even if there's an oncoming car,
you could do 3.
You can do 3, and they do it. They move over, and you sneak through in this fluid thing. The idea of speeding up while being passed is such a deeply American, fucked up thing that I don't understand.
It's truly perverse.
What causes that behavior?
It's the same thing that makes, so I ride a motorcycle. It's the same thing, and it's legal to split lanes in California, but nowhere else in the United States. It's the same thing that makes people pull over when you're splitting and obstruct your passage, or like some cases open their door to prevent your passage.
Which has been ruled as like attempted murder.
Really?
I think I'm exaggerating, but I remember reading something years ago about some court case about someone doing that, and they were in big trouble. And there have been law that you have to move over to allow. You can't stop these lane splitting.
Huh. I don't get shut out that often. Most of the time, people just stay put. Mm-hmm. And there'll be times where I'll pull up next to someone, and like, if it's at a traffic light and we're both stopped, I can see them, but I can't get in front of them because the side mirror is there. So I always get stuck at the driver's window. And like, I see that they have seen me, but they don't move over, even if there's like 4 feet of space in front of you. It's just like a passive fuck you as opposed to an active fuck you.
And because we live in the Bay Area, then they don't go quickly when the light turns green. Because look, I'm a New Yorker. If I got a motorcycle that lane split or just comes right and goes to cut me off, well, it's fucking on.
It's on.
It's right. I'm usually in like something stupidly slow, like any of my cars, and just like, and it always takes the motorcyclist by surprise. Like I'm doing it for fun. But motorcyclists, I find, are the only people in the Bay Area who will actually accelerate with any alacrity, is that the correct word? Mm-hmm. So like, hey, I get to race someone in my e-golf or my, bitch basket.
Yeah, but like even a crappy motorcycle does 0 to 60 in like 3.8 seconds.
What I found is that the e-golf sneak attack instant torque and the silence of it is good enough that by the time they realize what the hell's going on, like oftentimes, I'll do it obviously if we're in lanes next to each other, I'm not gonna hit motorcyclists on purpose. By the time I see they're like, they can't, they're now in second and they just, and they can't, and I'm still sticking with them and they're like, what the fuck is this crazy fucking going? I love that. But I just don't, like, here's the thing. What that woman did to you in the red Jetta, if she was in the state of California, is not, in fact, illegal. You can do whatever you can choose according to the DMV booklet, any lane you want, which is the
There are signs that say slower traffic, keep right.
But when there is no sign, it's legal to do. And this is my problem with all of American driving rules. Number one, they're inconsistent from state to state. And number two, there are just sort of baseline common sense driving rules that we should have. And frankly, even if we did, no one would know about them anyway because we have no driver training.
Yes, lack of driver training. There's also this issue where by hanging out in the left lane, you mandate other people to make unnecessary lane changes, and like lane changes, it's like flying. The most dangerous time in flying is like takeoff and landing. It's when you're changing state, and the same thing is true of lane changes. Every lane change you add, I think, introduces risk for some shit to go wrong because there could be somebody there, or somebody doesn't check their blind spot, or two people trying to change lanes in the same lane at the same time, or whatever. And so by obliging other people to do unnecessary lane changes that wouldn't be necessary if they just got out of the left lane.
And to force them to pass on the right.
Correct.
And the problem with passing on the right is that the dead spot, a blind spot on your right side is larger than the one on your left, and it's much more difficult to see a car there. Plus, under everyone else in the world's driving rules, if you know that no one will ever be passing you on the right, you can very quickly on an Autobahn, first of all, I'm a German driver in the sense I'm always in a lane change. I'm over, back, over, back, back, over, back. I mean, I'm just constantly moving around. But the thing about being on Autobahn is I can be, let's say I'm doing 150 and I'm passing a car that's doing 100. That's a huge closing speed, right? I can look up in my rearview mirror and I need to really look to make sure that no one's coming because someone could be coming at 250, right?
You're speaking in kilometers or miles?
No, I'm saying miles. Somebody could be going, okay, I'll do that. Somebody could be easily going 180 miles an hour, much, much faster than I am. So you pay attention and you really look. However, if I'm in that lane and completing my pass, if I glance up in my rearview mirror and I see someone coming at me, I don't have to look for a long period of time before I go to the right. I know no one is going to pass me.
Yes, because you've just completed an
Because
overtaking.
I'm just completing a pass, and they will not. Passing someone on the right in Germany is the same. Is a similar fine to passing. Blocking someone,
yeah.
to blocking a left lane, not any of them, and it's just not done.
Yeah, I mean,
so
like
you can get over the right.
In years of driving and probably thousands of miles, because I would say I do a 1,000-kilometer road trip in Europe every year at least once. Like I have seen an overtake occur on the right twice.
Yeah,
maybe.
Yeah. I think I've done it twice.
Like
once by mistake.
Very, yeah. Like it's a mistake when you're like, oh, I didn't mean to do that. And you don't want to slam on your brakes.
I was actually in Amsterdam, or I was in Rotterdam, right outside. I picked my Scirocco up, so I shipped it cross country, and this was a fascinating phenomenon.
Cross ocean.
Yeah. Picked up the car, and the first thing that happened was I had to make a 3-point turn because I misjudged how tight the car's turning radius was. So the Scirocco's tiny. I'm in Europe, which is far tinier than the US, so all of a sudden the car felt huge, which is the weirdest thing in the world to me. Like, I've had this car for 20 years, how could I possibly, at 15 at the time, misjudge this? And then I got onto a highway and caught myself in the middle of a pass of someone on the right, and I realized that the being in this familiar car made me think I was driving like an American. But then the other time, it was on that same drive, some guy just would not let me pass, some guy in a diesel 5 Series, and I was in the Scirocco, and I finally just got around him on the right. And that was the only time I think I've ever purposefully or in anger had to pass someone on the right in tens of thousands of miles. It happens. People do, space out, especially, people from countries other than Germany, because Germany, I think, has the best lane discipline. And you flash them and they move over, typically, yes. And that's it. But we don't have consistent laws from state to state. California,
and the training is poor. I mean, the American mindset is that driving is a right. Because
what's funny is New York, so I got my license initially in New York. New York's DMV manual, driving manual, says like on every page, this is not a right, it's a privilege and it can be revoked. And I always thought that was ironic because everyone sees it the other way around.
Yes, that's the American mindset. It's required to live as an American in most environments, right. Because of the nature of the built environment. Yeah. And so the bar to get a license in the United States is like comedically low. Yeah.
You sign up, you take a multiple choice question test about DUI, really, more than anything else, alcohol consumption, and you get a license in most states. I find that there are basic things. Perfect example. I have a really, I'm uncomfortable, I don't like people sitting in my blind spot,
yes.
right? One of the things...
asinine.
It is asinine, and it's incredibly dangerous. So one of the things that I'm always looking for is an escape route. Like, if a deer jumps out in front of me, if, my engine blows, because, I work on my own cars, it's possible. I always want an escape route, and that's one of the things you learn in German driver's ed. And if someone is in my blind spot, I don't know what they're doing. And also, if I need to cut in front of them, they could be close enough where I will pit maneuver myself on their front bumper, right? So I will never allow anyone to sit in my blind spot unless we're in traffic. And so this is 15 years ago. I was in my E39, and I was driving along, minding my business. Wagon. Cruise control set at 79.5 miles an hour in the 65 zone, so I just, don't get any tickets. Valentine 1 on a road trip, coming back, totally in my own world, listening to Buster Poindexter or some obscure weird radio shit. You know that song he did, Hot, Hot, Hot? And then Hot, Hot. Actually, it's the worst song he ever did. But anyway, and a car comes up and he's sitting in my blind spot. And now I saw him come up, and it's dusk, it's getting dark, and I know he's there, and I have my mirrors adjusted properly because I'm a nerd like that, and I know he's there, and I look over and I see it's a blue Sentra. I'm like, oh, whatever. So I let him go for a minute, and then I'm like, okay, so I just start clicking the cruise control down, right? I'm thinking, well, he's on my left, he needs to complete his pass and move back over. So I slow down to 72, 73, and he's right there. And then I speed up to 80, and he's right there. And then I speed up to 100, and he's right there. And then down to 50, and I'm looking at him because he's now right next to me, and he's just, in his own little world and not paying attention at all. And this went on for, in my mind, it was 20 minutes. It was probably 5. 5 miles having someone right there, and there's fucking no one around. I'm in the middle of nowhere. And so I'm starting to get really pissed, and I'm like, what do I do? What do I do to get this guy's attention?
Full ABS.
So, well, I stopped pretty dramatically. I did not a full ABS, but I slowed down, and he wound up doing the same thing. I got behind him.
Was he doing this completely accidentally?
Yeah, he was not. He's one of those people where you can look at them and you see their eyes are open, but the lights are on, no one's home. And so he wound up next to me again at 50 something, and then I fucking had it. We crept back up to 60, 75, whatever, somewhere in there, reasonable speed, and I fucking had it. And he's right next to me. And I'm looking over, and I'm like, do I fucking honk? Do I throw a machete in his face? What do I do? And so I just ABS, just get the fuck away from me, is what I thought. He lost his mind. And I don't mean, we've all had tempers, we've all lost our mind, traffic,
because
whatever.
you slammed on your brakes?
I don't know. Clearly, yes. But I don't know why. So I am literally right next to him. There's no way what I did endangered him in any way, shape, or form. All I did was full ABS in a straight line. So, and he slams on the brakes, and he comes for me. And he's flashing his lights, honking. He rolls down his window. He's screaming. And I'm like, what the fuck? And he then starts doing this to come over to hit me. And I'm like, okay, there's something wrong with this guy. Now, I've certainly had it happen where you frighten someone, and this is a wonderful Northern California thing where people are oblivious of their own existence, and you honk at them and they get angry, or I'll honk and be like, hey, your lights are off, and they're like, ugh, and they give me a dirty look, I've just saved your life, you bitch. But people are upset that you've made them aware that there are other human beings on the road. Wow, I'm not in my own little world, how dare you, you bastard, right? So I've had that happen where people have reactions like that, but nothing like this guy. He lost his mind. Genuinely was going to kill me, if he had the opportunity. So he came at me, tried to ram me, and I sort of moved over to the right a bit. I'm like, okay, fuck this, I'm out of here, right? I'm out. The safest thing for me to do is to floor it. So I floor it.
I love situations in life where that's true because they're very rare.
They're rare, but they're true. What am I going to do? Stop on the road? I don't know if he's got a gun. This guy has lost his mind. So foot on the floor, I'm in a 525i automatic wagon, slowest speed Libby ever made. And I
524 TD.
True. And I'm sitting now at the 131 limiter. And when I hit the gas, by the way, he hit the gas. So I pull 15, 20 car lengths on him pretty quickly. And I'm watching him, and he's disappearing, and then he's not disappearing, and then he's gaining and gaining and gaining. And I'm like, what the fuck? I'm doing 131, and I'm trying to get away from this guy, and I'm like, do I call 911? I'm in the middle of nowhere. What do I do? What do I do? And I'm like watching him. He's getting closer, and he's close enough. And I'm like, this has got to be an SER. It's a Sentra SER. It's not a regular Sentra. Fuck. Like, what do I do? I'm genuinely panicked. Like, I'm alone. There's no one around. This guy is clearly not stable. And just as he was getting right next to me, like he was right behind me, entering my blind spot, the laser on my Valentine 1 went off, full things. And we were just cresting a hill, slammed on the brakes yet again. He went right by and got pulled over. And I was like, okay, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? What do I do? The cop, I made sure the cop was only coming after him. Because I went down to 75, boom, cruise control. Cop flew by me, pulled him over, and never looked at me when I was driving by. And I just got the fuck out of there.
Yes.
But I think
I would do the same.
This is one of those things, like, he made me do this. Like, look what you made me do to you. But I was enjoying myself. And this is a thing about American drivers, is that they force you to be the asshole by virtue of them not speaking the same language. And I think that's the real problem. I speak German when I'm driving. You speak intelligent American who knows the rules. 40% of the Bay Area was not born in America. So 40% of the people that are around us grew up speaking a different vehicular language. They had different norms and customs and rules and expectations about personal space and about, the body language of your car in a lane. And I just wish we could just all speak the same language.
And that it would be German.
Yeah. I mean, for someone who didn't grow up in Germany, that's nirvana to you? Too?
I mean, as a person who is interested in motoring, yeah, I would like to be going where I think it's totally foolhardy that everybody goes the same speed in all 4 lanes. It's like the vehicles are like a fluid where they just occupy the space that exists instead of having some intelligence. I like the fact that, like, I would love it if there were different speed limits in each lane.
Yeah.
That would be like that's how it should be. It shouldn't have to be like.
Well, that's effectively how it is in Germany,
yes,
right? Because
but
you are not allowed to pace each other.
Correct.
You must complete your pass and get over.
Yes.
And there's this misconception that you can't, you can't block the left lane in Germany. It's not that you can't block.
You can't use the left lane unless you are overtaking.
Well, you can't use any left lane. It's not the left lane, it's any. So if there's somebody in the right lane, and you are in the right lane passing them, you pass them and you get over. You are no longer, so even if it's 4 lanes, if you start, number 1 is the right lane, number 2 is next, you are required to get back into that rightmost lane the second you're done passing them. And the only time you'd be in the 3rd lane over is if you're passing someone in the 2nd. Or the 4th lane would be passing someone in the 3rd who's passing someone in the 2nd who's passing someone in the 1st. And there are plenty of times you'll see Germans go from the right lane to over, to the next one, to the next one, to the next one, and then 4 lanes right back over in one signaled move. And that is proper. 4 lanes over, 2 lanes this way. I wear out turn signal bulbs in my cars because I drive the same way. And I tone it down slightly for the US because people think of it as weaving. But this is the intelligent way of traveling, right? This is the reason, one of the reasons, why German Autobahn, the network of German Autobahns has a lower per mile death rate than the interstate does, even though their speeds are much higher.
It makes absolutely perfect sense to me based on how American motorists operate.
You're a communist. You're thinking that there should be education that would stop everyone from having a driver's license, and how dare you? But no, I couldn't agree more. I wish that they didn't make me into an asshole. It's really not that much. Let's be honest here. It doesn't take that much to make me into an asshole, but I'm surprised to learn that you've become an asshole at the wheel too.
Become? I think I've always been that way. It's interesting also, like, on a motorcycle also, like, people tend to not see you when you're on a motorcycle, and going the same speed as everybody else when you're on a motorcycle is like, you just blend into the scenery because you become static from their perspective. Yeah. And so I always try to be traveling faster than the other cars.
Listen, the sort of 4 lanes across thing that you just said, I call that a clump of stupid, right? So there's a clump of stupid people and they're all traveling together. And I don't mean to insult them by calling them stupid, but they're stupid.
But they are.
Right. Well, what they're doing is very dangerous. And there's a reason they're doing what they're doing, actually. And sociologists have looked at driver behavior, and people who are weak drivers, and I call them weak drivers, these are people who are scared and they're anxious, want to reduce the relative speed between them and those around them because they're scared. So the best thing you can do,
stimulation.
there are two things you can do, right? There are two things you can do to reduce the relative speed between it. Well, three. Number one, you can drive on a really wide road, and that's why people drive faster on wider roads, even if the speed limit's not the same. But you can surround yourself by other people who are moving the same speed. Your relative speed to them is zero.
Zero, so it's...
So you're in this pack, no one's moving. And the last thing you can do, raise yourself off the road. The further you are off of the pavement, the higher your seating position.
The lower the sense of perceived speed.
Right. So look at the next time you're in traffic, look at the clump of stupid and look at who the people are and what they're driving. And you'll see that it's a combination of people who are genuinely not paying attention to what they're doing. They're somewhere else, and they're typically in taller vehicles. You're not going to find someone in a Miata in a clump.
Moral of the story, don't drive in the left lane unless you're passing someone.
And if someone passes you, for the love of God and Christ and all things, don't fucking speed up.
I don't know anything about this newfangled technology.
What, the whole podcast thing?
Yes.
All right. So the most important thing for you to know is that Carmudgeon is every week. Every week you can get a Carmudgeon Show, and it's broadcast on YouTube in this video format, but really you don't actually need to look at us. You can download it on your favorite podcast provider, provided that provider is either Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, or Google Podcasts. So go and subscribe to the podcast, get notified every single week that a new one's available, and you'll listen to us. Be curmudgeonly
Curmudgeonly
about
or curmudgeonant if you prefer.
Curmudgeonant?
Yes.
Did you just make this shit up?